Hey guys, how's it going today? I see nobody's in here, so I'm just going to wait a few minutes. Ugh, never cold outside. I thought I'd put this picture up of Adam. He's so cute. It's adorable. I would want to remember him like this, not what I've been reading, because that is too much. It's just awful. I don't know if you guys follow Megan Walsh at all on Twitter, but her whole feed is, I mean, it's yeah. She's got so much stuff out there about her brother and about the law being twisted. It's crazy. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is just start reading, and if anybody comes in, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. All right. I was being evasive. The idea certainly had potential, but this was still TV after all. What would it do to my credibility on the Hill? And besides, what in the world made me think that I could handle the job? Sure, I had been on Donahue and in a couple of documentaries, but that was a far cry from appearing as the host of a weekly national television show. I didn't even know what the Nielsen's were. I remember Donahue. I haven't seen that forever. Like even old episodes, I mean. All I did know was that whenever I did a media appearance, there was always tremendous positive feedback. Every time I was on Good Morning America or some television interview, hundreds of calls would pour into the National Center from state legislators and ordinary citizens. We were wondering if John could come to our state to help push our missing child clearinghouse bill along. I just saw Mr. Walsh on TV and I'd like to know what I can do to help. I didn't know whom else to turn to, so I called Alan Landsberg and Linda Otto and laid it out for them. Take it, they said. You'll catch criminals. I don't know anything about it, I said. I can't do it. Hey, cool gamer. Yes, you can. You can. After thinking about it for a while, I finally told Tom Hurwitz I couldn't promise that I would do a weekly series, but that I was willing to host the show's first episode. He, Linda, and I arranged to meet the next week in Fort Lauderdale, where they were filming a segment about drug smugglers with the Broward County Sheriff. We wound up meeting at 1 a.m. on the morning of August 5th, 1987, in the lobby of a Lauderdale hotel. I was nervous. We talked for an hour and agreed to meet again at 5 a.m. to shoot the show's opener at sunrise. They gave me a script, but I fell asleep back at the hotel before I even had the chance to look at it. My brother Joe, who was working for me at the time, was with me, and 4 hours later, we all met in the hotel lobby for the drive to the airport where the segment was going to be filmed. They wired me up for sound, and at 5:30 a.m., I delivered my first lines. I was beat and my voice sounded scratchy, but Linda later said that at that moment the producers knew they had their man. After we finished the taping, Linda asked if I'd like to see a sample segment from the show, a tape of the first crime recreation that they had produced. I said sure, so they popped a rough cut into the portable VCR monitor on the back of their rented station wagon. No studio, no screening room, just the flipped down back of a station wagon in an airport parking lot. The segment they showed me was about an Indiana man who had escaped from prison where he was serving 6 life sentences for murder, RAPE, kidnapping, and triple murder and arson. The convict's name was David James Roberts. At the time the show segment picked him up in 1974, Roberts had already been arrested for RAPE and convicted of robbing 3 women at gunpoint and locking them in the trunk of a car. I don't know. I could never handle that one. Being locked in the trunk of a car, I would go crazy. I'm super claustrophobic, so yeah, I couldn't do that. He had served a prison term and was out on parole. Then one day in 1973, he had ordered a new set of tires from a store. After they'd put on his car, he jumped in the car and drove off without paying for them. But he thought that the manager of the store might recognize him, so he followed the guy home. He broke into the guy's house, tied him and his wife up, arred the wife, then burned the house down. Holy crap. They found gas cans and the neckties that he used to tie them up. And when the firemen arrived, they found not only the bodies of two adults, trigger warning, but in a crib, the back bedroom, their 2-year-old baby daughter dead of smoke inhalation. Although Robert's fingerprints were on the gas can at the scene of the crime and he was already a convicted felon, a judge set his bond at $10,000, which meant that he only had to come up with 10% of that, and that was about $1,000. That November, he went on trial for 3 counts of murder, and it ended in a mistrial. Wow. That same week, at 2:30 in the morning, he spotted a 19-year-old single mother divorced who had just picked up her 6-month-old baby son from the babysitter because she worked at night. She was driving home down the deserted streets, when she noticed a man walking down the road. Suddenly, he banged on the window, a gun in his hand, and jumped in the passenger side. He made her go to an ATM machine and withdraw money, arred her repeatedly, and told her he was going to lock her in the trunk of a car. This was in Indiana in November. She was begging, "I'll do anything. Tell me what to do. Just please don't hurt my baby." Roberts put the woman in the trunk, her baby in the back seat, and drove off with them. After a while, he pulled over and put the baby out of the car by the side of the road. The woman knew that was happening because, from the inside the trunk, she couldn't hear the baby crying anymore. Later that morning, the cops found the baby, clutching blades of grass in his hands, frozen to death. Holy fuck, this is rough. He had crawled several hundred yards along the snowy roadside before he died. Major trigger warnings here. Just going to put that in here. In 1974, Roberts had been convicted for murdering the couple and their 2-year-old, as well as for the kidnapping and RAP of the Indianapolis woman and the murder and kidnapping of her baby. The tape ran for 5 minutes, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. Watching that one segment changed my whole opinion of the show. I was so outraged and so heartbroken. I'll never forget it. Here was a suspect in a triple homicide with a rap sheet as long as my arm. It brought tears to my eyes to see what he had done to two families. My brother Joe was standing next to me. And as I watched that tape, I felt like puking. All I could say was, "That son of a bitch." But here's the worst thing, John, Linder said. In October of 1986, while being returned to prison from a medical facility, Roberts got a small handgun and escaped. He kidnapped 2 guards, who got away when he stopped to make a phone call. At the time of his escape, Roberts was serving 6 life sentences, 3 of which were commuted death sentences. Now he had disappeared. The FBI put him on its 10 most wanted list. They've got their biggest manhunters on this case. Linder said, but they don't have a clue where Robert is. I couldn't believe it. I'm the father of a murdered child, and here's a guy who killed 2. I'm going to go home and talk this. One of the biggest things on my mind was my family's security. At the time, Reve and I were living in a rented house in Boca Raton, and we had already received the occasional threatening call. "We're going to kill you. We're going to get you." Things like that. Hey, Aesops. I wasn't sure who was doing it. I had certainly heard rumors that the pedophiles from NAMBLA weren't too happy with me. I had already testified against NAMBLA on the Hill and helped them in something called Operation Glass Window, a Justice Department sting operation that had busted pedophiles and child pornographers all around the country. The judges saw to it that the money resulting from fines imposed at sentencing be donated to the National Center. So these pedophiles certainly knew that the National Center and I were their enemies. In any event, not long before I was approached about doing the show, someone had called up our local utility company, Florida Power and Light, and said, "Hi, I'm John Walsh. From the TV movie Adam. I'm at the airport and I want to make sure that all my bills are paid for before I go out of town." The caller was told that FP&L's policy was not to give out any information without an account number. "Oh, come on, you know who I am. I really need to pay this bill, blah, blah, blah. And oh, by the way, I've changed my phone number to a new one." The FP&L employee reconfirmed the old number was the caller. "Great," said the guy. "I'll be sending you my check." The first we knew about any of this was when FP&L supervisor called us and said, "I think we've made a big mistake. We've given out your unlisted number to a stranger." Wow. I was livid. The FBI had already started our utility accounts, or starred our utility accounts, which meant that if anyone inquired about them, a notice was supposed to pop up on the computer screen warning that no information could be given out without a supervisor's approval. We had absolutely no idea who had made the call. Child pornographers? Child killers? People just trying to harass us? All we knew was that the horse was out of the barn. Both the Adam Walsh Center and the Broward Sheriff advised us to get out of the house, so Reve took Megan and Cal to the Bahamas for 6 weeks. My brother Joe stayed with me in the house, going in and out so that I looked as if there was some activity. There were round-the-clock cops sitting in patrol cars out front. Once a new guy came on shift without telling the other cop who was inside. The new guy came around back, and the one side freaked out and nearly shot. In the end, nothing came of it, except that now, in deciding whether or not to do this television show, I was extremely sensitive to the possible security issue. Fox was upfront about it. You're going to be profiling psychopaths, they said, and you're familiar enough with the world of law enforcement to know what that means. I laid it all out for Reve. If I'm profiling criminals as the host of a nationwide television show, it's going to change our life dramatically. Our visibility will be even higher than it is now, and we've got to consider the odds that some psycho may try to hurt us. I don't know where this is all going to go, Reve. I don't even know if this Fox Networks is going to fly. But we may never learn who killed our own little boy. Wouldn't it be something if we could catch a guy who murdered 2 little babies? Reve was right there. This is what we do, she said. It's what we're all about. I think you should go ahead and do the show. In my mind, some things still needed to be worked out. Because of the experience that we had with the 2 Adam movies, I wanted to make sure that this new show featured a toll-free number so that people could phone in their tips. Because of what I knew about interagency law enforcement task forces, I wanted to make sure that we included not just federal, but also state and local crime-fighting agencies, and didn't set it up so that we were competing against each other. I knew that we would have to be careful about civil liability, adverse pretrial publicity, and the treatment of victims. But all those considerations could be worked out, I knew. This was the kind of project that the big 3 networks would never tackle. Maybe this crazy fledgling Fox would make it fly. See, and this is where it sounds good for me, that he's actually going to be on America's Most Wanted and he's going to help people. I mean, this case, his son's case, did help a lot of people. I will admit that. I'm just more, I've been reading a lot of tweets from Megan Walsh, and they're very disturbing. Very disturbing. So after weighing all the considerations, I decided, yes, I told them, I will host their TV show. Before the show even went on air, my existing relationship with the FBI was a big help. 2 days before our Sunday debut, the FBI's director, William Sessions, a former judge, held a press conference along with me and Michael Linder at FBI headquarters. He said that the borough was willing to endorse the show and the idea of citizen cooperation with it. Both, he said, were good for law enforcement. It was a pretty remarkable event, given that never before in the borough's history had it ever endorsed a movie or a television show, even The Untouchables. But now, because of my history with the borough, the FBI's director was saying that the FBI and America's Most Wanted would have a kind of partnership. I didn't know that, actually. By that point in my life, I can honestly say that I wasn't afraid of much. But on Sunday, February 7th, 1988, the day that I walked into the Fox studios at WTTG in Washington to shoot the pilot, I was scared. It's still kind of painful for me to see those early clips today. It was rough. There I was in a suit, wearing makeup. The high-tech sets looked like cardboard. One TV critic said they looked like the Starship Enterprise. And probably 100 people, including a bunch of Fox executives, were all standing around, watching me. I had never done anything like this before. Nobody had told me anything, how to know which camera was on, how they count you down to let you know when to start talking. I was pretty green on that first episode. I was nervous, talking nonstop. I don't think she has a YouTube channel, but I know she does talk a lot on Twitter every day, all day. Like every day, all day. She's posting something about the law, about crooked cops, about her babies. It's really bad. So I could show some tweets after this. Michael Linder was being really nice to me, telling me to stay calm and everything. I didn't know that if the light went off on the camera, you were supposed to turn away from it and toward one where the light had just gone on, or how you cut away to the commercial or cue the clips. I guess they figured they could just talk me through it as they went along. So I just gave myself a little pep talk. Now, John, just pay attention and do the best you can. People told me later how intense I was, that most TV personalities don't care if they don't get it right until the take 35, and I was trying to get it right the first time. After 1 p.m., after a few hours of rehearsal, we began final taping of the show. The taping ran until 6:28. We had 2 minutes to get the final tape version on the air or on the satellite to 6 stations and to WTTG's master control. Then at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday, February 7th, 1988, viewers saw a pretty nervous guy on their TV sets at home saying, "I'm John Walsh. Welcome to the premiere of America's Most Wanted, a nationwide criminal manhunt, a partnership with law enforcement agencies across the country. Using actors, we will recreate crimes of dangerous fugitives, often at the location where they took place. We'll brief you on how the outlaws think and behave and where they may be hiding. Here in our studios, researchers are waiting for your calls on our toll-free hotlines. If you know something about these cases you're going to see, call us at 1-800-CRIMES-88. You don't have to tell us your name. Some of the crimes you're about to see are tough. Parental discretion is advised, but we believe these stories demand telling." Then the tape David James Roberts segment ran, followed by a segment where I talked about his description and background. Then we moved on to a profile of a guy named Ray Allen Minnick, who was wanted for multiple bank robberies and attempted murder. Then back to me, and I did some interviews with cops. After that, it was time to wrap things up. "I became a victim of crime. My young son Adam was kidnapped and murdered," I said. "I decided not to be for fear of revenge, but each of us can help and must stop this crime. And must stop crime. I'm John Walsh. Remember, you can make a difference." One of our biggest worries was that we would go to the whole 9-week run of the show without a single capture, but after the very first image of David James Roberts appeared on the screen, the most amazing thing happened. 8 incoming phone lines lit up all at once. By the end of the first commercial, 10 more calls were stacked up on hold, and 2 of those calls were from people in New York City who said they knew a man who looked just like the guy on screen. A few days later, I got a call from Tom Hurwitz. "Guess what?" he said. "You're not going to believe this, John, but they nailed David James Roberts." That's pretty awesome from the first episode. The cops had found him running a homeless shelter in Staten Island, where he had posed for a picture with Ed Koch, the mayor, in the New York Daily News a month or so before. Koch had gone over to Staten Island to give the homeless shelter an award, and David James Roberts, top 10 FBI psychopath fugitive, was standing next to the New York City mayor right there in the Daily News. Roberts, our first capture, was sent to Indiana State Prison in Michigan City, Indiana, to serve 6 life sentences plus 10 years, 6 in solitary for escape. Fox's initial game plan was to set AMW, America's Most Wanted, on its 7 owned and operated stations. There weren't even any plans to move it out to the network, but the first show drew such sky-high ratings on the O&Os that they decided immediately to start running the show on Fox network of 125 affiliated stations. No big discussion about it. No, should we do a third show before we decide? Nothing like that. The show didn't look like anything else that was on TV. The editing style, inspired by a video that Linder had seen by the music group New Order, was full of energy and tension. It looked as if the footage had been shot with a handheld camera. Now they were calling us reality TV, and in some cases, tabloid TV. All of a sudden, we were everywhere on the BBC, Japanese television, in Paris Match, and the German paper Der Stern. We were also an instant controversy. Everyone was asking if this show had finally crossed the line. Had it gone too far? Were the crime reenactments too gruesome? Was this the vigilantism run amok? My position was that if the only thing we were ever going to show was still photos of criminals, then the only audience we'd get would be on PBS at 1 o'clock in the morning. And furthermore, that I was not some kind of vigilante. Vigilantes take the law into their own hands. America's Most Wanted offered no rewards, and we kept the civil liberties of the accused in mind, no matter what we filmed. To this day, I still work within the system, hand in hand with law enforcement, trying to help them do their job. I was also trying to educate television people about how not to exploit victims. I was the one who kept saying, "We are not going to show that little trigger warning, that little girl's face on camera." Yeah, if nothing else, that show did actually help some people and bring others to justice. I totally agree. It did. It did. You are not going to broadcast her name. And if she and her parents decide that she wants to talk to let people know it could happen to other little kids, then block out her face. The same for our victims. If they wanted anonymity, but needed to tell their story to help regain some sense of control in their lives, then we would accommodate them in every way we could. Reporters also wanted to know, after doing the show, I could have the audacity to testify on children issues on Capitol Hill. Hadn't the show completely destroyed my credibility, they asked. My response was always the same. Do you ever watch the show? No? Well, how can you write about it then? Go home and watch the show and compare what we do with what your local movie theater this summer. Then what's at your local movie theater this summer? We never showed graphic violence on America's Most Wanted, and we didn't use exploding blood packs the way fictional cop shows do. None of that stuff. We were being careful, and we still kept managing to do what we had to do, set out to do, time and time again. In May of 1998, a guy who was wanted for a 1981 murder saw himself on the show, stopped a police car on the street in San Diego, and gave himself up. Wow. Which was probably wise on his part, since after a segment aired, 300 viewers called in with tips. That July, we caught another murder suspect, a guy named Robert Wayne Fisher, 27 minutes after his profile aired. And it didn't stop. In March of 1990, America's Most Wanted saw its 100th capture. All that and our ratings were great too. During one work trip to California, I ran into Fox CEO Barry Diller on a boat where they were having a meeting of the affiliates. He had hurt his leg skiing, but he still managed to come over to me and say, "You know what? You're the star of the most popular show on our network. I know what your show's ratings are. I found out that we're paying you, and I'm going to double your salary." Well, that's nice. In those early days of the show, a typical week started on Sunday, right after that week's episode had aired, when Michael Linder and I would sit down and work on the script together. He was a good writer and really captured my passion and my feelings. By that time, we weren't having any trouble finding cases to profile. They were streaming in from all kinds of sources: cops, victims, potential witnesses. A committee went through all the possible cases and would then refer to the most promising to us, and then we'd talk about them. Is this case too far-fetched? Is this one too old? Do we stand a chance of catching this guy? Even in those days, I had a lot of creative control in choosing which cases we featured. Hey, Brenda. Which is how we came to air the story of a vicious killer named James Charles Stark. Oh, Charles Starkweather. I remember that one. Back in the spring of 1987, Nancy McBride, my assistant at the Adam Walsh Center, had handed me a photograph that had been sent to us by National Center in Washington. This morgue shot of a little girl about 14 sickened me. Her eyes were swollen shut, and she had been battered, and the worst of it was that no one knew who she was. The cops didn't know the little girl's identity, but they did know who had killed her, because on May 1st, 1987, this guy pulled his van into a gas station in Banning, California, and inside, an attendant saw the little girl screaming and trying to get out of the passenger side. At that point, the guy behind the wheel grabbed her by the hair, pulled her back down on the floorboard with his left hand, and with his right, shot her in the head. Oh my God. Trigger warning, guys. Then he drove off, and a couple of miles later, shot her in the head again and rolled her out of the van and down the embankment like so much garbage. This little girl, maybe 13 or 14 years old, had been kidnapped and kept in this van for 2 weeks. The guy tortured her, arred her repeatedly, hit her with a ball-peen hammer in the elbows and knees, breaking her kneecaps. Later on, she was buried in an unmarked grave, and the only people at her funeral were a minister, a church social worker, and a funeral director. Jesus fucking Christ. The local coroner contacted the National Center to tell them about the case to see if they could help track down this little girl's identity. The center put together a wanted poster showing a close-up of the little girl's face as she lay on the autopsy table, along with a photograph of the man police suspected in the case, a 3-time convicted rapist named James Charles Stark. Okay, that's not who I was thinking about. I don't even know who this one is. I carried that poster in my briefcase for nearly 2 years. No matter where I went, I could never get that little girl's picture out of my head. I was obsessed with it. If I was speaking to parents of runaways or some local police agency, I would distribute photocopies of that poster. Is this your daughter? I would ask. Do you have a missing little girl who looks like this? Have you got this guy in jail? Have you ever arrested this guy? And now that I had the forum on the show, I didn't even think twice about it. We got to do the Stark guy, I told Michael Linder. I have to. We shot a whole segment on the case, all about the little girl, what had happened to her, and as much as we knew about Stark. 2 days before the show was going to air, Fox decided to promo it, so they ran a lead-in that featured the case. Based just on that promo, before the full segment even aired, we caught James Stark. Oh, good. That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. I hope he got the death penalty. He was working in a car wash in Ann Arbor, Michigan. People knew him as a strange guy. He used to brag about having killed people. The real controversy came almost immediately. We were, of course, planning to go ahead and run the segment on Stark, even though he had already been caught. The story wasn't over yet. We still didn't know the identity of the little girl. I wanted to show that morgue shot of her on television. And some Fox executives said, why? Stark's already been caught, and we can't show it anyway. It's too graphic. Nobody shows morgue shots on primetime television. We'll get all kinds of criticism for it. I wasn't going to back down on this one. Somewhere out there, there's a grandma, a mother, a brother, or a sister who needs to know where this little girl is, I said. That her remains are in an unmarked grave in California. That she was never given a proper burial. You don't know how terrible this is. You don't understand that for a parent. There's nothing worse than not knowing. Nothing. I know what happened to my son, but the parents of this little girl don't even know that she's dead. So Linda and I fought them on it. We hung tough, and we won. On the show that week, we showed them work photo of that little girl, and then a telephone call came in from the lady in Alabama who had been looking for her little girl, who had been mildly retarded and had either run or wandered away. That's so sad. The cops were finally able to put it all together, and this mother got her daughter's remains back. She buried them in a grave in Alabama and had a ceremony, and now she can visit her little girl's grave. She could put flowers on it and know that her daughter is in a better place. She doesn't have to worry anymore about whether her little girl is being tortured or if she is being prostituted or has drowned. I know all this because the mother in Alabama wrote me a letter and told me. The night that America's Most Wanted captured James Charles Stark was one of the best nights of my life. After his capture, Stark fought being extradited back to California because he was now facing the death penalty there. Good. At the time, I knew that he had once escaped by faking trying to hang himself. He had been choking and gasping in his cell, and when the guards came in to cut him down and take him to the prison hospital, he escaped. He had planned the whole thing. So when Stark lost his extradition battle, when the word got around that he was going back to California for this murder, he knew what he was facing. He'd been paroled 3 times already, and this was it. He knew the system. So in 1991, I said, we should do an update on James Charles Stark. He lost his extradition fight, and he's back in California waiting for trial. Let's really tick him off and let those guards out in California know that he might try to feign illness or fake a hanging in order to escape. It's a good story, and if he does try to fake his own hanging, wouldn't it be great if we could trip him up at it? I wanted the prison to know that they had a child killer on their hands. They needed to be very aware of that. So we went out to California, did a whole follow-up segment on Stark, and then about a month later, he did try to hang himself, only this time no one came to cut him down. The official report says that no one heard him. When I got that phone call telling me that James Charles Stark was dead, it was great. It was a crucial to my obsession. Not only had the body of a little girl been returned to her mother, but the man who was responsible for her murder was now dead too, and all because of the power of a television show. All of the stories that we've done. The one that really shot us to the national prominence was that of the notorious mass murder of John Emil List. Oh, you guys ever remember that one? John List, the one who had actually killed his whole family. And then he went on and changed his identity and actually got with somebody else. I remember that. That was horrible. I think it was 6 people. His wife and his children. He killed them all and had them all in sleeping bags, even his mother as well. Hey, Esty. You remember that one? It was horrible, right? He did eventually get caught. Yes, he did. In 1971, List was an accountant living in Westfield, New Jersey. He looked like an upstanding guy. He went to work every day in a suit, had a big home, was a Lutheran. He was a Lutheran Sunday school teacher. He lived in a mansion with his wife and 3 kids, but when the money started running out, he robbed his mother's checking account and started selling off the furniture to keep afloat. List was a religious fanatic and apparently decided that because his wife drank wine and his kids were into rock and roll music, they were all in the league with the devil. Yeah, eventually he was caught. So one day, all very calculated, he sent notes to his 3 kids' teachers saying that the kids weren't coming back to school. He stopped the mail, the newspaper, and the milk delivery. Then he shot his wife in the head and dragged her into the ballroom. Next, he shot his mother and stuffed her into a closet. And then, as the kids came home, he shot each of them. 2 in the face, the 16-year-old and the 13-year-old, and the 15-year-old who wound up being shot 10 times because he fought back. Then List wrote a confession letter addressed to his minister. When the cops found the bodies a month later, funeral music was playing on the intercom system. The temperature in the house had been lowered to 50 degrees, and 2 bloody mops were in the sink. List's car was found parked at JFK Airport. John List had disappeared. For nearly 20 years, there was an international manhunt for him, but no one found him. That still bothered a lot of people, including Westfield's retired police chief, James Moran, who wrote me a letter about how he had never been able to give up on this case. I was also getting some friendly sort of one-upmanship from my buddies at the FBI. Okay, Mr. Walsh, you think you're so hot? Let's see you solve the John List case. Actually, I don't know who solved that case, but I'm starting to wonder or think that maybe it was America's Most Wanted. We started by calling in an amazing guy named Frank Bender, an artist and forensic sculptor who worked with police to try to help identify the bodies of unknown dead kids. If some jurisdiction found the skull of a child in the woods, for example, Bender could do all kinds of research to recreate the child's face so that the bust could be shown to the parents to see if it might be their child. Bender really went to work, researching everything about List's background, his ethnic heritage, and what his parents had looked like, how he lived, what he liked to do, any small detail that might somehow fit into the puzzle. Bender did incredible work. He constructed a bust of what he thought John List would look like today, right down to the gray thinning hair and the thick horn-rimmed glasses. We featured that bust in a segment that we ran on List on May 21st, 1989. And 11 years later, and 11 days later, on June 1st, we caught John List. Really? So they did catch him on that show. Okay, I didn't know that. So 11 days later, they actually caught him. Holy crap. That's what was really good about that show. I will, completely agree with that. It was a good show, and it did help a lot of people. One of those little old ladies who are the show's biggest fans called up and said that a guy who looked just like the man she saw on TV was living in a suburb of Richmond, Virginia, under the name Robert P. Clark. We later learned that after murdering his family, List had moved to Denver, got remarried, and become an upstanding member of the community. Not once in 20 years did he slip up, but that didn't mean that he still didn't have to stand trial for cold-bloodedly executing 5 members of his own family. At the trial, which was held in April of 1990, List said he was sorry, and he was now a frail old man throwing himself on the mercy of the court. Tough shit, I say. But the judge wasn't buying it. It was time, he said, to let the 5 dead members of the List family speak from the grave. The jury convicted List of first-degree murder, and he received 5 life sentences. Not long after that, I got a letter from a guy who's now a lawyer in New Jersey. He said that he had been the best friend of one of John List's sons. Every year for 20 years, this guy has gone to visit the son's grave, hoping and praying that somehow, someday, there would be justice. And that's what you did for my friend, the guy told me. You got justice for my best friend. That's actually really sweet. Frank Bender's recreation was uncanny. His bust of List was on the front page of the New York Times, and it matched recent photos of List right down to the receding hairline and horn-rimmed glasses. That bust now sits on a shelf in my office. It's one of my coolest mementos. Our help in solving the List case turned into a big deal. It was all over the place. And when they interviewed the retired Westfield police chief, James Moran, about the capture, he gave us a pretty nice compliment. He said that it cracked him up that people were calling to congratulate him. I'm not the one who got him, he said, pointing at his TV set. They did. All of a sudden, our little fourth network TV show that everyone had called tabloidy and rough around the edges was finally getting some respect. Now they were calling it a great vehicle. Now we had credibility. Now we were launched. It was a big kick to get that kind of recognition, but it wasn't the biggest thrill that I've ever had from doing America's Most Wanted. The cases that have always mattered to me most are the stories of missing children. And of those, the one that I still think is closest to my heart is the story of Genny Crone. Genny was a beautiful little 12-year-old who lived with her loving family in a subdivision in a remote area of the Florida Panhandle. One Wednesday afternoon, after asking her dad's permission, she rode her bike to get some candy at a convenience store less than a mile from her home. Jenny never came back. A little while later, her father found her bicycle lying in the middle of the road. Almost immediately, Holly Adams, a friend of our friend Ginger Richardson, called Nancy McBride at the Adam Walsh Center in West Palm Beach. Nancy called America's Most Wanted right away and even arranged for a CBS satellite truck to transmit a home video of Jenny to us so that we could include it in a segment on her that we were going to rush into production for that Friday night show. It was a bad time. Back in Jenny's hometown, people were searching, sending out flyers, doing everything they could to find her, with no luck. Then, an agonizing 3 days later, Jenny called her brother from a payphone saying that she had been kidnapped by some guy but had been released unhurt. Wow. That's like a first. Wow. Holy crap. That's amazing. Jenny was interviewed by the police and turned out to be a street smart little girl. She told the cops that a guy in his moped had seen her, followed her down her dirt road, pulled a gun, and forced her to come with him. He had kept her in a motel across the state line in Mobile. And it was there that Friday night that the guy was watching TV and saw Jenny's story on America's Most Wanted. Jesus, am I in trouble now? He thought, and that was when he decided to take Jenny back to Florida and let her go. That's amazing. I'm really glad that happened. Holy crap. Jenny gave the cops a great description of the guy, drew them a picture of his tattoo, and had got the license plate number of the truck he was driving. After the segment aired, another one of those die-hard older lady fans of the show called up and said, "You know that guy who kidnapped that girl on a Friday night show? Well, he's staying in a trailer here. He had been wearing a blonde wig to disguise himself, but the FBI found him and arrested him. After the guy was taken into custody, he said that the reason he had released Jenny was because all the news on TV had freaked him out. Now he's doing life without the possibility of parole." The best part of the story, was yet to come. It happened when Jenny's parents, Tom and Peggy Crone, invited me to fly down to the Panhandle to meet them. It was pretty emotional when I got there. I said hello to everyone, but I kind of hung back about approaching Jenny herself. You should never try to touch a child who's been through an ordeal like that unless he or she approaches you first. And that's exactly what Jenny did. She came up and threw her arms around me. It was just unbelievable. That single gesture made everything worth it. All the torture, all the hardships, all the horrible, horrible things. Jenny's dad took me aside and told me about the terror he had gone through. How all through those 3 days his wife had kept saying to him, "We're going to get her back, aren't we? She's such a beautiful little girl." And of how he tried to keep up the front, I was so terrified, he told me. It was better during the daytime because there was activity. There were cops at the house, but at night, when it got dark, that was when the terror set in. I was remembering exactly what he was talking about. That was when Tom Crone said to me, "Our little girl is going to be sleeping in her bed tonight because of you." I like the happy endings. I really do. In 1992, Lance Heflin, the new executive producer of America's Most Wanted, came up with the idea of our missing child alerts. What they are is pictures of missing children that we arrange to put up on the satellite with that logo on them so that anybody can take the picture off the bird. That way, for example, if the local CBS affiliate in the child's hometown wants to rerun it on local news, they can. As for the show itself, we've now run profiles of 287 stranger abducted children. 130 of those kids have been recovered, 21 alive as a direct result of tips to America's Most Wanted. Wow. The remainder of those children are still unaccounted for, and we have a full-time person at both America's Most Wanted and the National Center working on those cases. Because it's one thing to catch a serial killer, but there's nothing to compare with the feeling of getting a missing child back alive. We've learned a lot of surprising things over the course of AMW's first decade. One was that one big demographic of fans aren't exactly where you'd expect to find them in prison. Really? They had fans from prison? But it's true. Those guys are some of our faithful followers. We also tracked down a lot of fugitives who turn out to be already incarcerated for other offenses. At one point, for example, we hunted down Teddy Untrainer, I think that's his name, a notorious pedo who, we believed, had escaped from the United States to Canada. He would SA little Vietnamese kids because he could speak Vietnamese, and he was wanted on more than 20 counts of molestation. Jesus fuck's sake. At the time we ran our segment on him, we had no idea where he was, until a prison guard in Canada called us up and said, "Hey, you guys, Teddy Unterrainer's here, right here in our facility." Another great part of the show was how much law enforcement loved it, all different kinds of agencies and jurisdictions. When cops first heard about the show, they, like me, were highly skeptical. It's the media. They'll double cross us, and they'll get into our case files. But right off the bat, we made it clear that they weren't going to have to worry about that kind of thing. So that different jurisdictions and agencies would be competing against one another. On one of our first cases, we made a point of inviting in 3 different police agencies, federal, state, and local, who up until that time had been exchanging information with each other. "Look, you guys," I said, "why don't you go all into the corner over there and start comparing notes?" Not long after that, the New York Times ran a big story about America's Most Wanted in its Sunday magazine. Robert Morgenthau, the Manhattan District Attorney, came out sounding like a big fan. "A couple of detectives or FBI agents can spend months or years searching for someone," he said. "It seems to me that this show is a wonderful way to save the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's always nice to hear stuff like that." I got a special kick in 1991. In recognition for my work on the show, I was named FBI's Man of the Year. Me, the guy who 7 years before had been barely ejected from the Justice Department. Being the host of America's Most Wanted does have its drawbacks, though. Like the death threats, I've gotten many. I've gotten my lecture from the FBI guys a long time ago. If some nutcase tries to kill a guy like the Pope, they told me, imagine what some of the guys would like to do to you. Welcome to the world of reality. If people could see the death threat file that I have, they'd puke from the things that people say they're going to do to me or my family. Ever since the show started, I had a rotating staff of 3 bodyguards who travel with me at all times. They're all New Yorkers, all detectives, and all the best Ron and Nosti, who for years worked serious organized crime undercover. Paul Rossi, a homicide detective and veteran of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office Organized Crime Unit. And through it all, John Reed, a highly decorated and now retired 23 New York homicide detective. Every day, I literally trust these guys with my life. Hey, Sayla. Oh, don't worry about it. I'm just going through it. We're almost done this book, but do you want, here, I'll give you the link if you want to come up. I'm like more excited to watch the movies because there's Adam and then there's the second one. And then, I don't know, I kind of wanted to go through Megan Walsh's, whatchamacallit, Twitter. There's so much stuff on there all the time. There you go. Ever since the show started, I've had a rotating staff of 3 bodyguards who travel with me all the time. They're all New Yorkers and detectives and all the best Ron. Oh, I just read that. I literally trust these guys with my life. I remember the guy from Denver who sent me encrypted death threats every week for months, writing me and signing his sick, jangled letters in blood, like the Zodiac killer. Ew. He claimed to have committed R's, abductions, serial murders, but the epitome of his life would be killing John Walsh. He was going to kill the Manhunter, he said, because that was going to make him famous. Hey.
Hey, sorry about my forgetful.
How are you?
It's been a shitty couple 3 weeks. Sorry, my memory is just like gone. So
No, I
sorry.
know. That's why I just didn't want to bother you with this. And I figured continue reading and we'll worry about all the stuff that's probably, I guess, more important afterwards.
Yeah, I'm glad my
Yeah, I
husband
didn't, I,
reminded me though.
that's what I know.
I probably needed it to come up
How
here
are
and
you though?
listen.
Are you, yeah.
I'm doing pretty good. My
Are you any better, do you think?
mm, well, I don't know if I remembered. I don't know if I even told you. Wednesday, my granddaughter that we have or that we were kind of taking care of between her, myself, and her other
Yeah,
grandmother.
how's that going? You did tell me.
Yeah, she dropped dead
That is
Wednesday,
insane.
and we found out it was an
And it was because
overdose.
of drugs, wasn't it?
Yeah, she got a hold to a
My
bad
God.
batch and had fentanyl in it, and she does not take like opiates. So what she took had
Oh
fentanyl in
my
it. I think it
God.
just stopped her heart. She was just 60. She just turned 60 years old, and she like way more healthier than me. Like it was just such a shock. But so anyway,
Yeah.
but
So
I'm
she
just
normally
glad
doesn't
that
do that stuff?
I didn't even know. I mean, we've been friends for like almost 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Since the baby was born. After that, I knew she had like a past a long time ago, but I'm not going to judge somebody over their past. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never saw any evidence
Yeah.
of anything. I've seen people on drugs before, but I never saw her on anything. It's
Yeah,
crazy
that's
how
wow.
you
That's
don't
I'm
know.
sorry to hear that.
But she was a really good friend, and it has
Yeah.
affected me more so than I thought, to be honest with you, because we, talk almost every day. It's just, you know, a shock. And then right after my cat died, that it was
I
just like
know. I'm so
a
sorry.
crazy last 3 weeks. But you know what?
Well, and
I
then your
guess
granddaughter as well, right?
yeah, DSF came in and took her because we
Wow.
were 5 minutes too late, literally five
Oh my
minutes too late,
God.
and they didn't even call us. And anyway, so once they take the
Wow.
children into custody, it is hell to get them back. So we had court this morning. So, but
Yeah,
thank
I've
God
heard
she's back with
that.
family. So,
Is she? Oh, good,
yes,
good, good.
yes,
Because
yes,
that's
yes.
one thing the child does not need. Any child.
No, because it is it's
Wow,
trauma,
that is awful. You've had
which
quite the week.
it has been. And
Yeah.
Megan, she's been, of course, that's what you were just talking about earlier. Champion, she's been like champion for all these
Yeah.
people that are going through the same stuff with CPS, and it is so corrupt. It is just unreal. It really is. And I can have even more empathy for her now.
It's considering, what the book we're reading, and that's
Yeah,
just
I found it odd,
quite the coincidence.
honestly.
You know what
It
I mean?
really, really is. Sometimes, I just
Yeah.
wonder, people have, you know what I'm saying? They know how to find things out and even how to do things if they know somebody's got an issue. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
almost feel like a targeted type situation possibly. I mean,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not saying that for sure. I'm not I'm allegedly saying things like that do happen sometimes when people won't keep their mouth shut. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty vocal, as you see
No,
on
I
Twitter.
agree.
I do not hold back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
But God
I do.
works it out. I really
I'm very
believe
proud
that.
of you for
I
doing
have
that
faith.
because you know what? People need to be.
Yep.
Yep.
And I'm not going to let a bully back me into a corner because, I mean, it's not, I'm not going to keep
No.
my mouth shut. So if it takes,
Good.
sometimes things,
I'm glad.
I'm, and she's safe and she's with family and I get to see her. And honestly, she's with somebody that I'm able to see her anytime I want to. And also, really, I'm not
Oh,
healthy
good.
enough right now. You know what I'm saying? To watch her 24/7. And
Yeah.
that's why her and that's why me and the other grandmother, kind of shared that responsibility. And we both
Yeah.
enjoyed it, honestly. And I just like, it was the shock of the fact that she passed away and how she passed away. That was a big shock. And then CPS,
Yeah.
that was even a bigger
Yeah,
shock.
I
But
agree.
how crazy is this? They found out more than like 6 or 7 people died the same day in that same area right there in a cluster of overdose.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. So that means there was clearly a bad batch. Like that's
It was in the
wow.
news. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, why
Oh, I
do what that's
believe it. It's
like
scary.
it's just crazy. I mean, I was just like, what are the chances of all this? And also, why would you take my grandchild from me? I mean, I was 5 minutes almost there to get her anyway, not knowing what happened. And literally, when we got there,
Yeah.
her other granddad said CPS just left here 5 minutes ago with her. And I hunted for her all night long. I mean, I could not sleep. I was up and down. I mean, it was just horrible. So I can't see. This is what I mentioned to
Yeah.
Megan the other day about I don't see how her dad and mother, supposedly losing a child, can put their daughter through this trauma on purpose. I don't understand that. I can't put it through my head. And Megan,
No, I
I don't know
can't
if you've
either.
been looking at her Twitter lately, but it's even
Oh yeah,
getting
I was just
worse.
saying earlier
They're
that I should go through
Yeah,
them and show everybody what's been going on because she posts every day, all day. There's always something, and it's horrible.
yeah.
I
hmm
feel so bad for her.
I do too. I really do. And like she had a court, what do you call it, a court hearing or whatever, but she had to do hers by video. I don't know why, but yeah, and it didn't turn out so good. And like, there's no other reason except
Mm.
for her father pulls the shots in that town.
Yeah, exactly.
She showed her home,
Oh, I would
you know,
imagine
it's
that.
beautiful,
Yeah,
and there was you could see how organized and everything she was, and I can tell she's a good mother. I can just tell by the way she acts, and
yeah,
those children were very happy. It's just a very odd thing. They never ever had a problem with her until she started speaking out, and then it was
talking
a
about Al.
control thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, like yeah, exactly. I'm gonna, it was almost like, well, it started with controlling with money, you know, sending her back to
yep,
Passages Malibu for the reprogramming by the Rothschild man. He was over her, like her reprogramming or whatever, over in Malibu Passages, California. I'm sure you've seen those. I know a lot of people from America have seen those commercials. You might not, but it's just really posh
yeah. I
place,
see
and
some of the
yeah.
tweets, not all, but I do see most.
Anyway, so it was like a reprogramming thing, like what happened to Kanye West. When they grabbed him up and threw him in a
Yeah,
mental institution, and like you could tell they've done some shock treatments on him or something, because every time they do that to somebody, they come out with that real white
yeah.
blonde
He's
hair.
a little out there now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can imagine they've done some crazy stuff to him, like like those electroshock things
Yep.
that they used to do. You know what I'm talking about? So it's kind
I
of
think so.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and Megan evidently used to either go out with Kanye or was either very good friends with him, because she's even reached out to him now because of what they're doing to him. Like, they're kind of making him out to be a little
Yeah.
crazier than he, because he's doing the same thing. He's talking
Yeah.
out
I was
about
seeing
all this
that.
stuff. So, yep, they're keeping his babies from him.
He does sound crazy, but I don't know. There's
Well,
got to be
but
something to it.
think about this though. Okay, he keeps calling out the fact that Jay Z had his mother allegedly. You say that oft. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? For
Yeah.
RIT. You know what I'm talking about? Like a how I will sacrifice this for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's what he's saying has happened, but
Yeah.
that is like common knowledge in Hollywood. So it's like,
Wow.
he's just speaking out about it. So he already did that one time, and they threw
Okay.
him in the nut house. But he is basically saying that his trainer, which is where they picked him up before, is his handler. And I know you've seen Megan tweet a lot about handlers and things like that, which kind of are people who make you do what you're supposed to do. And she broke away from it though, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Hey,
chapter were
Benita.
y'all on? What? Hey.
I'm almost done the books, surprisingly. What am I on? I'm on America's Most Wanted, so chapter 12.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you and come in late. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Um, so Aesop says, do they track down the seller of that bad batch? I would imagine they would try.
They will. They have her phone, and I'm quite sure that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, all they have to do is look in the messages or the whatever. And I could tell, like, I didn't know anything happened to her because, you know, the green light on Messenger, when you're hooked to somebody on Messenger, the little green light shows if they're online or whatever.
Yeah.
And that green light stayed on
Yeah.
for 3 days, for 3 days straight. And I even called at one time, or 2 times before I knew something happened to her, you know. And it's just like it rang and rang and
Yeah.
rang on Messenger. Nobody answered. I was like, that's weird, because she never like not answers me. And I did think that was weird. But the crazy thing is,
Oh,
for 3 more
man.
days it was going. So I think they're going through her phone, and I hope they do. Like, I hope that they get whoever in the heck
Well,
is
yeah, me too.
selling that stuff, because it's killing people. And you know,
It
think
is.
about
Yeah,
it, if
they
a
need to go
child
through
would
that
get a hold
phone.
of that or something too. It's scary. And it was in cocaine. It wasn't even in a downer. It was in, they put
Wow.
fentanyl in cocaine. That's what I'm telling you. That sounds very suspicious.
That needs to be banned
Does. Well, it is. It's illegal
because
as
if
hell, but
like drugs are drugs, but like honestly, fentanyl I think should just be banned.
it should be.
Yeah.
They've taken things away much less than that. But this fentanyl is no joke. I mean, it will kill you with just a little tiny bit. I've heard of people, police
Yeah.
officers, you know, even touching it in like a car or a house, or picking it up off somebody, and like just absorption through their fingertips, it puts them on the ground.
Yeah, I heard that too. That your
Yeah.
skin will absorb it. That's
Yeah, but
insane. They shouldn't even have it then. Like
you know what's
it shouldn't even be
crazy?
made. If it's that lethal, why are we consuming that?
Yeah, and listen, they make a patch called Duragesic, and
Yeah.
it is straight fentanyl. And whenever I first got lupus, before I'd ever even taken any opiates in my life of any type, I had never even smoked pot, nothing at this time. And my doctor just straight out started prescribing me fentanyl patches. And I was wearing them because I was
Oh my
stupid
god.
and didn't even know, you know, and they kept coming off of me, like the adhesive was bad. And I told the doctor, and I had a toddler at the time, and I kept telling the doctor. And finally, I
Oh
went
my
back.
god.
One day, I felt really sick. Like, I felt like I was overdosing because I was out in the car that had no air. And it was so hot, and I literally started felt like I was going to pass out. I took the thing and threw it out the window. Jay's like, "Oh
Yeah.
gosh," looking back, he's like, you know, if a dog ate that or something, they just like killed over in the street, like
Well,
for real." 'Cause
yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't have no idea. I thought it was like, it sounds like an analgesic, so I thought it was something that was. I didn't know. You know, I didn't even know it was an opiate. And so I went back to my doctor,
Yeah.
and I was like, these things keep falling off of me. I looked it up online. It says it's a very strong, powerful opiate. I do not want you to
So
prescribe me
scary.
this anymore, because I have a toddler. What if it falls off of me and she grabs it, you know, and I don't know it's falling off of me? So I said, I'm not, I just took the ones I had and
Yeah.
actually flushed them. And I know you're probably not supposed to do that now, but I didn't know back then. But yeah, I flushed them because I was so scared to have them around the house. And
Yeah.
looking back, I sure am glad I did. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I would be too. Yeah, I
And
mean
they
too.
do. You're
That's
right. I think
wow.
you're right, though. I think they need to take it off the market.
Yeah, I get it's for people that are. I do too. If it's that bad, it needs to be taken away because it's killing people.
Right.
The wrong people are getting their hands on it, and it's killing people.
Hmm. Just like they cut heroin off
Yeah, it's
the
supposed to be
market.
used for people in terrible pain.
Right. Heroin used to be legal. You know that?
Really? I heard
Yeah.
Coke was too because it was actually in Coca-Cola.
In Coca Cola. Yeah, it was. And they took it out and they put the caffeine
Yeah,
as a replacement. Um, so yeah,
yeah,
heroin was legal until I think 19. I have to look it up. 1930s, I think, 40s. You could order it out of the Sears and Roebuck
yeah,
catalog
something like that.
with a hypodermic needle, and morphine or heroin.
Jeez. Wow.
Times have
I
changed.
didn't know. I was surprised at the quick. No. Wow.
Anyway, that's crazy.
Ugh, I think I'm going to read just a bit more. I started at 7. I'll finish this chapter. Oh, it's a huge one. So I might not even be able to finish it. Oh, yeah, it's huge. Well, I'll keep reading until, I don't know, 20 after or something. And then, I don't know, we can end it, or, I don't know, go look at her Twitter, Megan's Twitter or
Wing,
something, see what's
wing
going
it.
on. Yeah, I like winging it.
Yeah, me too. Fly
All
by the
right.
seat of your pants. Go ahead.
Yeah, I find it's easier. Then I don't have any expectations. You know what I mean? So that way I can't be like, oh,
Amen.
damn, I screwed up. No, I'm just winging
Exactly.
it. Okay. The guy was a real nutcase, and the guy was wanting to kill John Walsh because he was going to kill the manhunter, he said. And that would make the killer famous. That's lovely. So he tried to make me think that he was signing his letters with the blood of his victims. I sent some samples down to Quantico for analysis, and they said that the blood was most likely his own. So these are kinds of lunatics I have to deal with. There was another guy who broke out of prison and was wanted for murder. He used to call me up from payphones and say he was going to kill me, and he wrote letters to that effect. He said that if I was ever cornered, he was going to take down the FBI agent with him. 2 FBI agents, one an older veteran, the other guy a young guy who had just gotten out of the academy, responded to a sighting of this guy. I never got to meet the older field agent, but the younger one came to Washington to be a guest on the show. Later on, he told me that he had been playing tennis when he got the call, so he showed up for the shootout in his tennis whites and had to get his gun out of the trunk of his car. By the time this young agent arrived on the scene, the psycho guy was out on the front porch in the middle of a big firefight. I didn't even have a vest on, the young guy told me, and this guy had automatic weapons and was firing through the screen door at us. My partner was down behind a fence and he was screaming at me to get down. John, the bullets were John, the bullets were whizzing right by me. I'd only gotten out of Quantico 6 months before, and they never told us these guys were going to shoot back. Wow. In the
What a
old
life.
days, agents had 38s. What? Sorry?
I just said, what a life.
Yeah, there's always something that's crazy
So,
going on with John. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
Now so they used to have only 38s that only held 6 bullets. Now they got Smith and Wesson 9mm that have 12 bullet clips, good guns. So the old pro agent was down on the ground, firing away, shooting and shooting, telling his young partner, keep shooting, keep firing, distract him. Hey, Amanda. Finally, the psycho guy came out onto the porch, still firing, because, sometimes these guys have a death wish. 2 agents were winging him, and he kept firing back, and all the time, the agents were moving in on him. They changed clips and kept firing and kept moving in, and finally, the guy stopped moving. The older FBI agent shot him again anyway, and when they finally got right on top of the guy, the old pro shot him again one last time. All in all, the psycho guy had taken something like 17 bullets. Holy.
Wow.
Geez, the younger guy said to his partner, what did you have to shoot him so many times for? Damn it, the older guy said. I just wanted to make sure he was dead. Lovely.
Overkill.
No doubt about it. This show has changed my life in obvious ways and in at least one way that I could have never imagined. In November 1990, a call came into America's Most Wanted show hotline from someone who gave his name to the operator as Joe Matthews. The message finally worked its way through to me, and I knew immediately who he was. Joe Matthews, the Miami Beach homicide detective who had been imported by the HPD to polygraph me that terrible night 9 years before, had once shown me some kindness in one of the darkest periods of my life. I never forgot it, and now Joe said he needed a favor himself. With his reputation as one of the best homicide investigators in the county, Joe had been working on a case down in Miami that had become known as the Baby Lollipops case. I don't know this one. The baby
I
in
don't even.
question, a little boy, had been found dead in the bushes of an affluent Miami Beach neighborhood. But that wasn't the worst of it. At 3 years old, this little boy weighed just 18 pounds.
Mhm.
He was what cops call a closet baby. He was covered with, oh my God, big ass trigger warning. He was covered with burn marks and evidence of old abuse, fresh and poorly healed broken bones, skull fractures, and lesions. The chief medical examiner called it the worst case of child abuse, neglect, and torture in Dade County history. Joe Matthews had worked the case as hard as he could, but there was no leads. He was at a bitter dead end, and in his mind, that just wasn't good enough. So after much mulling, he decided to call America's Most Wanted for help. 3 days after I got Joe's call, I was down in Miami with the film crew ready to roll. I came out of my trailer and started walking down Ocean Drive. I hadn't seen Joe in 9 years, but up ahead, a block away and walking toward me, was the guy I recognized immediately. We just gave each other a hug and we both had tears in our eyes. Joe, probably as well as anyone, knew that it had been like for me to lose my son. The following week, the segment on baby lollipops aired on AMW. I wonder why they called it baby lollipops.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I don't even
The
remember
odds were
that, and I used to
probably,
watch that all the time.
yeah, is this case familiar? I don't remember it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't even remember it, and I watched
Oh.
it all the time. Do y'all remember it? Does anybody out there remember that?
Yeah, the baby lollipops. I've never.
I was just wondering why
So it
they
says
called
the
it
odds
that.
were probably 9 zillion. Yeah. So the odds were 9 zillion to against finding a subject, but through tips, the baby was positively identified, which in turn led to the arrest of the person who had beaten and tortured him for 3 years of his life and then finally killed him. His own
Mm.
fucking mother.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the lollipops. Um, Baby lollipops, they called him. He was 3 years old. I never heard of it either.
Well, they just arrested
Joe
that
got a confession from
BITCH.
her.
Sorry, I was going to say they just finally
Yep.
arrested that BITCH that killed her little boy. They found his body
Yeah, I seen that today. I seen that.
in the landfill. Mm.
Yeah,
How
he
can
was in
mothers
there,
do
wasn't he?
that?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Mm.
I don't understand that, and I never will. As a mother,
Neither.
I
Thank
never
God.
will.
Mm-mm. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just that just
Yeah.
what flew me for a loop after
No, it's okay.
that little kid was found today in the landfill. And then that mother
I
kept that
know.
little baby in the closet until he was 3 years old and 19 pounds.
Yeah, 18 pounds.
Holy
Oh
moly.
my God. Joe got a confession from her, and later, after a trial that revealed that the woman, oh my God, trigger warning, that the woman, the so called mother, used to put cocaine up the baby's nose and then spray him with incesticide because she liked to watch him go into convulsions. This
Oh,
fucking bitch received a death sentence, thank God.
did she think? I was gonna say, damn, I'm
Wow.
going down there and get arrested, and getting there and beat her ass.
Yeah.
I hope she's dead.
Did it? Yeah,
I hate
I
to
guess
say
they
that.
found the baby and he was in the landfill. They
Yeah,
found the
he was.
baby. The mother was arrested today.
Hmm.
Oh God.
People like that. I'm sorry. I think if anybody deserves a death penalty, it's a mother that kills her child. There is nothing worse. How could
Absolutely.
like
Yep.
literally like I just can't even think. Like animals know better than that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Thanks,
Like
Asos.
like Casey Anthony, she deserved the death penalty.
Yes.
Susan Smith deserved the death penalty. Um,
Yep. Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Diane
it's just like
Downs.
yes. I mean, there shouldn't even be a death penalty if they're not going to kill these people. The mothers that can kill
Exactly.
their own children. I mean, to me, that's a special kind of place of hell for people that do things to
Yeah,
their
I
own
agree.
children. Mm, gee.
Only after did I learn that, as horrible as the baby lollipops case was, it wasn't the only reason that Joe had contacted me. He had lost a lot of sleep trying to decide whether he should tell me about it. but something had been eating away at him for about 9 years now, and it was time to get it off his chest. Joe had supervised and conducted over 10,000 criminal investigations, 1,000 of them death investigations, and now what he was telling me was the same thing that my buddies at the FBI had been hinting at for years, that the Hollywood Police Department's investigation of Adam's murder was one of the most screwed up cases he had ever seen. I never really knew. I had my suspicions. Privately, I begun to wonder if the cops actually knew what they were doing. It seemed to me that they were disinterested in Adam's case, that they were slow to follow up leads, and that they hadn't really gone down every avenue or exhausted all the possibilities. I always remembered how, a few months after Adam died, a little boy had been abducted up in Bureau Beach. Jay Howa called the HPD division. He told them that a 5-year-old boy had been kidnapped from his home in Bureau the day before, and the response was, "Why are you calling us?" Jay laid it all out for them. That, several months before, Adam Walsh, a 6-year-old boy, had also been abducted, and that was when his remains were found. They were found near Vero Beach. The woman on the
Now,
other end of the line said, "Well, I'm sure that if the Vero Beach police think it's important, they'll contact us." Then she hung up. All along, in the decades since Adam's death, the tips never stopped coming in. Boxes of them. Some of them were obviously crazy, some of them weren't. Any letters that came to us, either at the Adam Walsh Center or to America's Most Wanted, were immediately sent to the Hollywood police, ordinarily to Jack Hoffman, who was still the lead investigator in the case. HPD's attitude was always, "We're an investigating agency. We'll look into it." I don't know how many times I called Jack Hoffman myself after something had turned up. "Have you looked into this?" I'd say. "Have you checked that out?" Hoffman's response was always the same: "We'll get back to you." Sometimes it would be a month before he got back to me. Sometimes he wouldn't get back to me at all. Maybe I should have been more aggressive, but I didn't have access to all the confidential information that the police did, and I didn't want to compromise the investigation by asking too much about it. After all, I wasn't a cop, I was only a civilian. What did I know? In 1983, we had ridden an emotional roller coaster with the when the HPD announced that they were going to indict this drifter named Otis O'Toole. I didn't have much in the way of specifics, only that the case against Toole had apparently started falling apart when he couldn't produce Adam's body. Even though the cops had spent a lot of time digging around the Indian River site where his remains had been found. That was when the Miami Herald started looking at whether the HPD cops were doing a good job. People were starting to question their methods and investigative techniques. This was also right at the time of our suit against Sears, and I was still hurting from all the vicious press that we had gotten. As a result, I lashed out at the Miami Herald for being so mean spirited toward the cops. And on every anniversary of Adam's death, the 5th year, the 10th year, we always told reporters that we believed in the justice system and trusted that the Hollywood police were doing everything humanely possible to solve Adam's murder. Above all, I was always the solid citizen, the great defender of the efforts of the Hollywood police. But over time, after all the experience I had gotten with law enforcement, all the investigations I had seen, all the bad guys we had caught, and all the joint task officers that I had been involved in, I began to think differently. My FBI buddies were clearly trying to tell me something. You really should get us involved in Adam's case, they were saying, because those HPD guys haven't done anything on it in years. From personal experience, I started thinking that maybe they had a point. In July of 1991, police in Milwaukee arrested a 31-year-old sexual deviant named Jeffrey Dahmer. At the time of his arrest, Dahmer was on probation for a 1989 conviction for sexual assault of a 13-year-old boy. When police opened up his refrigerator, they found 3 preserved human heads. Fuck.
right, but he didn't like
Apparently,
little
although
kids.
most
You know,
no,
he
he
was
didn't. His
little
youngest
tiny
one,
boy.
yeah, was
Young
13.
boys were not his thing, his type. And even the
No,
boys that were
not at
13 and
all.
14, they looked a lot older actually. I
Yeah,
looked at the
yeah, I
pictures.
remember
Like
that.
the police even took one of them back home to him, thinking it was his lover that
Yeah.
was drunk. Yeah.
Yes, that
So
Chinese guy. I'm like, holy,
yeah,
holy.
yeah. So like that is just totally way off base. I just had to say that because that was like a
Yeah, I
rumor going
agree.
around. But I mean, I'm just saying that just because he lived in that area and there's a kid, and it also you just mentioned that other kid went missing that was 5 years old, right at the same time
Yeah,
that
in the
Adam went
same
missing.
spot.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
know who we were talking about, and I think that's what maybe triggered Megan to look into it because that picture of that face or that head, it does not look like Adam. It just doesn't at all. The teeth don't match
No,
them.
it doesn't.
And there it was another child missing, so there was nothing to really identify. You know what I'm saying? Like the Brian Laundrie
Yeah,
thing.
there
It just
wasn't.
Mm-mm. So I just had to
Yeah.
point that out while you're talking about it because some people were
Oh
asking
no,
about that
no
last
worries. I'm
time.
glad you did.
Remember when we were talking about the other
Yeah.
kid that was going missing, and some people were asking who that kid was. So they just mentioned it right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, although most of Dahmer's 11 victims were young homosexual men, he had also dabbled with children. No, he didn't.
No, he did not.
In 1988, for instance, he had been arrested for molesting a 13-year-old Laotian boy, and to get even with the family, he then kidnapped the boy's 14-year-old brother.
I mean,
Dahmer
that's
took the boy
disgusting,
back to his apartment in Milwaukee and sodomized. Yeah,
but it's still not a
sodomized and
5 year old.
tortured him. The boy was no, it's not. The boy was found wandering in the street, naked, incoherent, drugged, and bleeding from the anus. Two Milwaukee policemen, who were later suspended for what they did, picked the boy up and took him back to Dahmer's apartment, writing the whole incident off as a lover's quarrel. At the time, they noticed a horrible stench in the place, but they didn't even bother searching it. Nor did they do a records check on Dahmer, who was on probation for having sexually assaulted this boy's younger brother. That's fucked. Wow.
That's yeah, that's messed up.
Um, were these the two worst cops in North America? They returned the kid, they laughed about it, and then Dahmer finished him off. In the meantime, Dahmer had the stinkiest apartment in the building, filled with rotting body parts, but his parole officer said he never went down to see him because he lived in a rough part of town. Not too long after Dahmer was arrested, his father, Lionel, called the America's Most Wanted hotline. He told us that even though Dahmer had never been convicted for it, his father believed he was a pedophile. Lionel told us that Dahmer had mustered out of the army in Hollywood, Florida in 1981 and lived in a motel on the beach near there. I immediately called up Jack Hoppin and gave him the same information that had been in the papers. Here's the tip, I said. Dahmer's a pedophile, and his own father saying that he was in South Florida at the time Adam was abducted. Hoppin called me back and said that Dahmer's lawyer wouldn't let his client talk to any police agency from a state that permitted the death penalty, which Florida does. So I called the Broward County Office of Florida State Attorney, Michael Satz, and asked him to write a letter. It basically said that I wasn't interested in pushing for the death penalty. I just wanted some closure. To know if Jeffrey Dahmer was the man who killed my son. I said I didn't care if he did die for it. I knew he'd never get to prison, but he certainly fit the MO, and I just need to know if he had really been in Hollywood and was the one who had kidnapped Adam. Michael Satz responded that the state attorney's office hated to throw in the towel on a capital case. Look, I said, couldn't you just write a letter that would give the Hollywood police the entree to talk to Dahmer to see if he might confess to Adam's murder? So I went through the channels. I'd gotten the required letter. Then I called Jack Hoppin back and asked when he was going to talk to Dahmer. He told me that the HPD had already spent thousands of dollars on Adam's case and that there wasn't any money in the budget for this kind of trip. Wow. You know what I said? I'm making a pretty good living on TV these days. I'll pay your way to go talk to Dahmer. Hoppin said he'd think about it and see what he could do.
Wow.
At that point, I received a call from two FBI agents in the Milwaukee field office who had been working the Dahmer case. John, what the hell is going on with the Hollywood Police Department? Dahmer's lawyer has quit him. We interviewed him on all kinds of unsolved cases around the country. We can get you in to talk to him. We can get the HPD right in. Where the hell is this detective? What if Dahmer was the guy who had abducted Adam? Why the hell hasn't someone been up here to investigate it? The FBI guys were wondering about the abilities of the HPD investigator who seemed less than enthusiastic about pursuing the interrogation and suggested that an expert ought to be handling it. So I asked them how come they weren't involved because they said they couldn't just Bigfoot this case. They had to be officially invited in by the local police agency whose case it was, and so far they hadn't been asked. I called up Hoffman again. Why aren't you in Milwaukee talking to Jeffrey Dahmer? This time Hoffman said that he wasn't going to go, but that he had to wait for a travel voucher. Jeffrey Dahmer was a confessed serial killer, responsible for the deaths of at least 11 people, including a 14-year-old boy. He had a past history of child molestation, and he had 3 severed human heads in his refrigerator when he was arrested. In July of 1981, the month that Adam was abducted, Dahmer might have been living in Hollywood, Florida. I'm just going to stop there. My throat's getting sore. I've been reading since 7. Whew.
Oh wow.
I'll continue back on my way.
That's
It
a
does sound
heavy.
like Dahmer could be,
I mean, I can
yeah.
understand why they might think that, just to be like on
Well,
the
the
safe
severed
side or whatever.
head for
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. But it seems like he would have kept it the way he kept all that stuff.
Yeah, that too, exactly.
Not only that,
Wow.
like he kind of came like toward the end of his life before he got murdered in prison. He kind of came clean about so many different things. You know what I'm saying? Like I almost
Yeah.
feel like he might would have told. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah, I agree.
as long as Adam Walsh agreed, that he did not care if he got the death penalty or not. He was already going to stay for life. Like I don't think he would have kept
Yeah.
it quiet. I just don't. I just think he would have told it because he was pretty straightforward about everything, even in the trial. Like he sat there like it
Yeah,
was
you
just
was.
matter of fact.
Yep.
So I feel like
Yeah, he
with him
did. He was very
admitting,
open and
yeah,
honest about
yeah,
it.
I think he would have told. I really do. I mean, I know he was a sick, freaky bastard, but I don't know. He just still seems to tell the
Yeah.
truth about a lot of that stuff. But O'Toole, they chose to
Yeah, I
believe
agree.
when he's a liar, and he lied all the
I
time.
know.
Otis Toole, that was his name.
Yep.
Which I think
Yeah, that
today
was his name.
eventually tried to blame it on. I think they tried to blame it on him. That's pretty heavy,
Yeah, and at
though.
that time too. Yeah,
It is
it
weird that
is.
he
It
would be
really is.
there.
And I was reading. Yeah, yeah, it is weird. It's quite coincidental, but it's only a coincidence. Usually, I don't really believe in coincidences, but I don't know.
I don't
I
either.
can't see him doing that. It doesn't. It doesn't
It
add
doesn't
up.
fit his MO. It just doesn't. Like, there would have been at least one or two other children that would have come up missing around him that would have been
Yeah,
noticeable, I believe. Like, once it all came
yeah,
out,
I agree.
so publicized. And that other kid, was he there when that other kid's head, or not head, but that other kid went
I don't
missing? They
know.
never
I
found,
don't think
or her.
so.
I don't even think they ever found anything about him. I've never heard anything of it since.
Yeah,
Like he thinks
me
that he
neither.
didn't have any help with Adam. Think about how that family must feel. Seriously,
Exactly.
like they didn't get the treatment that Adam and Reve got.
No,
That's
not
for
even
sure.
close.
No, I don't know. There's something wicked in that wood pile. It just seems so bizarre. So many
Yeah,
things just seem so
yeah.
bizarre.
Are you going to be going live about that baby being found in the oh my god, and the mother being arrested? Have you done a video or anything on that?
Not, I haven't yet because I honestly just heard about it like right before I got on here with you. So I hadn't even thought about it. I only made
Yeah,
one video about him when he went missing because I feel bad. Like, okay, like digging apart that yard, um, over in Fruitland, Idaho, for
yeah,
Monkey Michael Vaughn, um, and they're literally going like inch by inch digging up that whole entire backyard looking for that
yep.
child after all this time. And that I've already done one
Um,
video of the people that live in that house. They are very bizarre,
yeah,
really weird,
really. Wow.
really, really weird. And I think they were in a trafficking or something. I think they were allegedly. I will say that because y'all, I don't want to get you in any kind of strikes or anything, but I'm just saying allegedly. Like
Oh,
it
I'm
seems
good.
that they were running a trafficking service or something and using a taxi business to
Oh
cover
my
it
god.
because I did a lot of research, and found two businesses. That
Yeah,
one was called Lube something taxi and oil change, and it was from their house. And then the new taxi service called Fate Taxi, and they're like over the
really.
top religious, like crazy. Like, okay, there's a fine line between people with faith that are normal and healthy, and then people who have
Yeah,
gone over the other woohoo side to loot. You know what I'm saying? Like, criminally
yeah,
insane and religious. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I get it. Yeah,
Like the Heaven's Gate thing or Jim Jones with the purple Kool-Aid stuff. Like
yeah,
woohoo stuff. And
yeah. I
she
agree.
seemed like after that little kid went missing, um, that's when she really started about all this religious stuff, almost like they were trying to hide behind it. It was very
Yeah.
bizarre. Because I went back and literally looked at every one of that crazy woman's TikToks. I'm serious for 2 days straight. I thought
Oh, did
after that, I
you?
thought I was gonna need a
Oh
shrink.
my, that must have been a trip.
Yes,
Yeah, that would have
it
been
was.
perfect
Look, I
trip.
would rather somebody strap me down to watch Katie Joy for 2 days. I think. Oh God, it was that bad.
Oh,
Ooh, it just
yeah.
goes to
I
show
haven't
you, though,
seen that. Oh,
people are
yeah,
loopy,
it does.
and like, there's a picture of Michael that they posted on the man Stacy Wandra is his name. Okay, and I don't know if you've seen anything about this because I know you
Hmm.
probably don't get the same news, where you are that we do. But so this kid
Yeah.
was 5, the same age as Adam. Actually, I think he was 5 when he went missing. Um,
Oh,
and his mom like heard that they were basically looking for a dead body and found that out on a live that I happened to be watching at the
oh
same
my
time.
God.
And my heart, they let her go come up there, and she was begging people, please stop using my son. And I don't want to hear on YouTube. She was like, thanks for crushing my hope. She was just crying her eyes out.
Yeah.
And I mean, my heart was just breaking for her. I mean, that would
I
be
would be
bad.
too.
Yeah.
Fuck, to find out that way.
But I still think that there's hope because I think that woman is so crazy. She divorced that man in October. She could just be trying to get attention and get him in trouble or something and make some kind of. Her mom is a lot Looney Tune
Yeah.
too because I looked up her Facebook. She's a very. I see why the daughter is crazy because that mom she did like a 10.5 year bit in prison. I don't know what for.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but she's like literally like, and she's older than me, I think, which I'm 52. She looks like she's a good 10 years older than me, but she's literally like on Facebook and TikTok, like making all these sexy videos of her in like very skimpy, like negligees and things. I think she went to Sturgis, like the biker thing, because she was wearing this thing that was showing her
Yeah.
boobs on both sides. It was, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder that woman's crazy. Seriously. No, I mean, and like, where did that,
Yeah.
like, and her mom was bragging about doing 10.5 years in prison. Oh, and not only that, but she said,
Oh
listen, get
my.
this. Here's something that's funny. If this will maybe like set the mood in a different way, because this is hilarious. And I was gonna do a live about this or a
Okay.
video about this, but I'll tell it on here because it is so dang funny. So the woman says, okay, she has a picture of an animal in her back seat, and I was looking
Okay.
at it, and I was like going, huh, I don't think that's a dog. Okay, so she writes up there at the top. So I found this dog at the grocery store. Like I leaned down to pet him and he growled at me a little bit. Um, but he just like rode in the back of the car. He wouldn't get out. So I just drove home with him and he's in my car right now. Does anybody recognize this little beautiful little puppy? And I'm like, that's a dang wolf or a coyote. That is not a daggum
Oh,
dog. Like
oh
I
my
showed my
God.
husband that, and I showed my husband a picture of it. He goes,
Holy
that's
crap.
definitely a wolf or a dog. So then I start reading all the comments up underneath, and her friends
Wow.
are writing her, and her friends are going, "That's a dang coyote or a wolf," and she's like, "No, no, no,
Oh.
no, it's a dog. I petted it," and she's like, "It did growl a little bit, but." She literally, she goes, he's out in my car right now. I don't know what to do. She said,
Oh my God.
she threw a cover out there, and then so her friends tell her, you need to call like the wildlife. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and so she said, well, they won't come out until in the morning, so I'm just gonna leave him in my car. And people are telling her this is not a dog. Like, don't leave him in your car. He could tear your car up or whatever. The next day, she was like, y'all were right. The
Oh
animal
my
rangers
God.
came and they said it was about. And I told my husband, I said that looks like a juvenile wolf. Like, what I'm saying? Like about 8 months old,
Yeah.
literally. And looking down, she goes, well, the park ranger came. He said it was an 8-month old wolf. I was Like, that woman doesn't know
Oh my
the difference
god.
between a wolf and a dog, but she raised kids.
That's
Oh
funny.
my god!
That is
You reminded me of
hilarious.
that
And what's
raccoon
even worse though
commercial.
is that I would pick it up too. Oh my god.
You had no, you would have
That's
known this was a
funny.
wolf. I mean, it looked
Oh yeah.
like a miniature werewolf, like off of like Twilight or
Oh my
something.
god.
Oh, it was
Wow.
so funny. I mean, there's no
That's
way.
funny.
Like, she has to be. There's something wrong, obviously. It wasn't like a little puppy. It wasn't a puppy. It was like a big. It was like it
Yeah,
looked
if
like it
it's
might have weighed
that obvious, right?
like
Wow.
60 pounds or something. And she's riding home with a wolf in her back.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, holy shit.
She threw
That's
dog
funny.
food out there through the window at him, and he stayed in her car overnight.
Oh my god.
Oh gosh,
Did it tear her
I like.
car apart?
No, it just laid there. It was probably going. I'm a wolf. How in the hell did I end up in a car?
Yeah.
Being taken into myself.
What the hell is he gonna eat dog food for? He's gonna want like a rabbit, not dog food.
He was at the daggum grocery store because he was back there nibbling for food. And
Oh
she
my
lures
god.
him into her car and
Wow,
takes
that's
him
funny.
home. And she was like, well, I really thought if nobody claimed
That
him,
is,
I could keep him. She literally wanted to keep him.
oh my god.
If she hadn't
Wow. I'm
posted
glad
that
someone told her.
picture,
Can you imagine her trying to keep that as a pet?
that's what I'm saying. Like, she got a bunch of cats. She would have bought, if she would have brought that dang wolf in and not
Oh
called
my
nobody or
god.
posted that picture and nobody knew it. Think about it. She could have gone to sleep and then it could have ate her or something. Like, it
She
wasn't
didn't
a
have no
small.
cats left.
She did have cats.
No. Wow.
She wouldn't have after the wolf came in, but
No, she wouldn't have. That's what I mean. She wouldn't have any cats left.
no, she would not have. That was so funny though. When I read that, I cried. I almost peed my pants. I'm not even kidding. Because before I read anything, I was like, that's a dang wolf. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
Well, now
funny.
it's understandable. And then she was saying something about growing her criminal enterprise. And I was like, dang, well, are you using your daughter and son in law to do that? After you got out of a 10.5 year
Yeah.
bit in prison? You know, like something's going on. And I just don't see how they would tear a backyard up, which this woman owns that house that her daughter and son in law are living in with this kid, supposedly, was his last place or whatever. Like
Mhm.
that, they're looking for remains or whatever. That's what they say. So they're like going layer by layer by layer, digging this whole entire backyard up, taking the fence down. Like, I hope they like
Oh
gone
my
through the house
god.
with luminol and stuff. I don't know. It's just really
Yeah, me too.
strange. The whole thing is strange. But I just feel
It
sorry for
is.
those
I
parents,
agree.
because those are some of the real parents that I just feel
Yeah.
like that are innocent. You know what I'm saying? You can tell that woman. She was like, I have gone through
Yeah, you can.
437 days of pure tea hell. Every day waking up wondering where my kid is. Can you imagine? Because I can't imagine. Because one night my grandchild was, taken in CPS, and I was going crazy, not knowing where she
Yeah.
was. I can't imagine waking up every morning thinking a stranger has your kid every single day for
No.
over a year and a half. Like never getting a break and having to carry on, take care of your other two kids and work.
Yeah. I
That's
couldn't do
just,
it either.
that's a lot. It breaks my heart. Like, to see these
Me
parents
too.
suffering like that. And then these channels, you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Some of these channels, you know what I'm talking about, that like use these
No, I know
children
what you mean. Yeah.
and they're trying to get these
Yep.
like $100 top chats, this, that, and the other on other people's
Oh yeah.
misery about their children. Like that is like, no, that's not okay. Like, especially if the kids are actively missing.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
why I touch on. I know. I do true crime, but not. I don't
that whole
know. There's some
community
things
is
I
like
stay away from.
cuckoo. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of those people in the
Yeah.
true crime community, it's
There.
a bit what's the word? Catty or I don't know. They're just like
Catty
cutthroat or
Woods.
stab back You know what I'm saying? Like backstabbing kind of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, very much so.
And I just don't like to see anybody try
Oh,
to,
I should get off here though.
what's the word when you exploit? Like I don't like to see anybody exploit
Yes, and that's
an
happening a
actively
lot.
missing child for super chat, super chat, $100, super chat. Like
Yeah, me too.
I'm not gonna say the person because sometimes I watch them and sometimes I like them. You know, I have that kind of love hate
Oh,
relationship,
I'm pretty sure I know.
and it's just like sometimes it's like you know, if I don't get a super chat in 30 minutes, I'm hanging up. I'm not even gonna go live. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm going off the air. If I don't get 300 super chats, $300 with the super chat, I'm like, what in the f are you talking about?
Wow.
Like these things, you need to go ahead and just cut. You don't need to like after a certain time of night.
That's
Somebody needs to take your
crazy.
microphone away. I think people get like you know
Yep.
how we talk about Katie Joy in her drinks. Sometimes we don't know what it's water or what
Yeah.
allegedly. And I'm serious. I think these people
Yeah.
either drunk or high or on drugs or something on Xanax
Yep.
something, and then they get
Oh yeah.
live and they embarrass themselves. Because I'm
Uh-huh.
just
Oh
like
yeah. I've
some of
seen
these
it.
people are like a train wreck. And I'm not gonna call nobody's name out or nothing, but I'm just saying like some people need to take a back seat for a minute and just like uh
Yeah.
take a deep breath for a minute and go back and look at some of their old videos
I
for a
agree.
while. Do you know what I'm saying? Because this
Mhm.
particular person says they never watched their their lives or their whatever, and I'm like, but you need to. You really need to. Like, because I
Yeah.
really like this person sometimes. I really do. Funny and has a funny
Yeah.
personality, but I don't know. Sometimes it's like a couple
There's
different
sometimes
faces.
it's like, oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's one of those friends that you have, that you're like, I can take you for about a day, and then you're just too much, and I have to
Yes.
like, yeah,
Yeah. I've
it's
got a
like
couple of
you're
those.
stealing all my energy away. You got to go.
Yeah.
I think some people just you have to take them in doses.
Oh, you're just joining, Deb? I was just about to get off here.
I, I do that on her channel all the time. Right when she's getting off, I get on there.
Yes, I know. I'm horrible for that too. Well, my
I don't
son's
get.
looking at me. He's like, I'm hungry.
Oh bless him.
Okay.
I don't get. I don't get any notifications for some reason. Like
A lot
even
of
if I
people
put the
aren't.
little
So
thing
the only
on.
thing I can
Yeah.
suggest is like, yeah, like click on the bell, and then unclick it and then press all again and see if that works.
Yeah.
But there's another one too of my subs that all never gets notified, keeps getting unsubbed. I don't get it.
It is weird. And like I have like one day my
Yeah.
account will be one thing, and then like it'll be -3, and then 3 days later it'll be like 8 more, and then it'll be all. It's like so weird off. Like not that I have a lot of subscribers
Yeah,
or
I
anything. It's
just
just
lost
weird
7
the way that
subs for
works.
some reason. I'm like, holy. Yeah.
Like what's going on with y'all over here at YouTube?
Yeah.
But
They're screwed
yeah,
up big time.
I think so too. But I've been watching your video,
Oh,
even if
I
I
should get
can't
off here. I'm
catch them
gonna make
live.
me and my boy.
Yeah, go get him some
Yeah, thank
pizza
you for
maybe.
that. Well, I'm kind of hungry
But
too, so I'm thinking, grilled cheese or something maybe.
yeah, I was eating chicken salad while you were talking. I'm sorry. I hope y'all couldn't hear me chew.
I didn't even hear it. No worries.
I don't want to be like somebody else with the super chats or nothing. Playing around. I'm just playing.
Yeah, I
I'm
see
kidding.
that. They sound
Y'all go,
fun.
y'all go get a pizza or something and enjoy your night. But
Yeah, we'll go.
thank
I'll
you
should
for
get
having me
something to
on.
eat.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, y'all have a good night. Thanks,
So,
everybody. Bye.
alrighty.
No,
Good night. Thank
see y'all
you.
later. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. You might want to cut me off. I don't know how to do it.
Oh, okay.